Good morning. Today is Tuesday, April 21st, 2020. And when we last left Mr. Popper's Penguins, they had just gotten a contract to be performers in shows all over the country. During the next day, there was much to be done at 432 Proudfoot Avenue. There were new clothes to buy for all of them and the old ones to pack away in mothballs. Then Mrs. Popper scrubbed and polished the whole place. She didn't want to leave things a mess while the Poppers were away. Mr. Greenbaum sent them their first week's pay in advance. The first thing they did was pay off the man who had installed the freezing plant in the basement. He'd been getting rather uneasy about his money, and after all, without him they could have never trained the penguins. Next, they sent a check to the company who had been shipping the fresh fish all the way from the coast. At last, everything was done, and Mr. Popper turned the key in the door of the little house. They were arriving a little late at the train station because of the argument with the traffic policeman. The argument was on account of the accident to two taxicabs. With 4 Poppers and 12 penguins, not to mention the 8 suitcases and the pail of water with the live fish for the penguins' lunch, Mr. Popper found they could not all fit in one cab, so he had to call a second one. Each of the taxi drivers was eager to be the first to get to the station and surprise the people there by opening the door of his cab and letting out 6 penguins. So they raced each other all the way, and in the last block they tried to pass each other, and one of the fenders got torn off. The traffic officer naturally got very much annoyed, and the train was about to pull out of the station when they arrived. Even with both taxi drivers helping them through the gate and over the brass rails and onto the rear observation platform, they barely made it. The penguins were gasping. It had been decided that Mr. Popper should ride in the baggage car with the penguins to keep them from getting nervous, while Mrs. Popper and the children should ride in one of the Pullmans. Because of getting on at the observation end of the train, Mr. Popper had to take the birds the whole length of the train. It was easy enough to get them through the club car, even with the pail of fish to carry. In the sleeping cars, however, where the porter was already making up some of the berths, there was trouble. The porter's ladders offered too much temptation to the penguins. There were a dozen happy "orks" from a dozen ecstatic beaks. Popper's performing penguins, completely forgetting their discipline, fought to climb the ladders and get into the upper beds. Poor Mr. Popper! One old lady screamed she was going to get off the train, whether it was going 90 miles an hour or not. A gentleman wearing a clergyman's collar suggested opening a window so the penguins could jump out. 2 porters tried to shoo the birds out of the berths, and finally the conductor and the brakeman with a lantern came to the rescue. It was quite a while before Mr. Popper got his pets safely into the baggage car. Mrs. Popper worried a little at the start over the idea of having Janey and Bill miss 10 weeks of school while they were on the road, though the children did not seem to mind. "And you must remember," said Mr. Popper, who had never before been out of Stillwater in spite of his dreams of distant countries, "that travel is very broadening." Here's a picture of the penguins waking up all the people in the sleeping cars, climbing the ladders. From the start, the penguins were a riotous success. Even their opening performance in Seattle went off without a hitch, probably because they had already rehearsed on a real stage. It was here that the penguins added a little novelty number of their own to the program. They were the first thing on the bill. When they'd finished their regular act, the audience went wild. They clapped and stamped and roared for more of Popper's performing penguins. Janey and Bill helped their father herd the penguins off the stage so the next act could go on. This next act was a tightrope walker named Monsieur Duval. The trouble was that instead of watching him from the wings, as they should have done, the penguins got interested and walked out on the stage to watch him more closely. Unfortunately, at this moment, Monsieur Duval was doing a very difficult dance on the wire. The audience, of course, had thought the penguins were all through, and they were very much pleased to see them return and line up with their backs to the audience and looked up at Monsieur Duval, dancing so carefully on the wire high above them. This made everyone laugh so hard that he lost his balance. "Ork!" said the penguins, waddling away hurriedly in order not to be under him when he fell. Cleverly recovering his balance, Monsieur Duval caught the wire by the inside of his elbow and saved himself. He was very angry when he saw the Popper performing penguins opening wide their 12 red beaks as if they were laughing at him. "Go away, you stupid things," he said to them in French. "Ork!" said the penguins, pretending not to understand and making remarks to each other in penguin language about Monsieur Duval. And whenever they appeared, the more they interfered with the other acts on the program, the better audiences liked them. The birds soon became so famous that whenever it was known that the Popper performing penguins were to appear at any theater, the crowds would stand in line for half a mile down the street, waiting their turn to buy tickets. The other actors on the program were not always so pleased, however. Once in Minneapolis, a celebrated lady opera singer got very annoyed when she heard the Popper penguins were to appear at the same program. In fact, she refused to go on stage unless the penguins were put away. So the stage hands helped Mr. and Mrs. Popper and the children get the birds off the stage and downstairs into a basement under the stage, while the manager guarded the stage entrance to make sure the penguins did not get past. I'll read you some more tomorrow. Bye!